All right, welcome back to the On Life podcast. I'm Anthony on Life. With me, as always, is Andy, aka Metafictional Meathead. We are back in my kitchen after being in Dan Lawton's kitchen. And today we are talking about the internet's effects on books. Is it a net positive or net negative? Andy,
Tony,
let's just start by we'll talk about the pros first. Then we'll talk about the cons, and then maybe we can come to some consensus. So, pros of the internet on book culture, book industry, and we'll consider this from both the perspective of someone who consumes books, but also maybe your thoughts on people who make books.
I think there are a lot of pros. When I was thinking about it, when we talked about this earlier, I tried to think about really the three main, I guess, four mediums that I use to talk about books, read things online, social media wise about books. And it usually comes down to mainly Instagram and Reddit and YouTube sometimes, and occasionally Twitter. I follow a lot of bookish people on Twitter that I also follow on Instagram, but I typically don't spend a lot of time on Twitter.
So you're an Elon Musk fanboy.
Don't say that. But I think there are a lot of pros. I think number one, the biggest is it kind of helps foster that community of people that love to read, love to talk about books, the online literati, if you will. This is something that we talked about, in our first episode, where didn't have a lot of people in our personal lives that were reading the type of books that we were reading, and it kind of, we're missing that discussion aspect.
Right.
So I think social media brings that to the table for a lot of people, which is great. I think it's a great place to learn about new books, both in the sense of like new as in new to you, stuff you've never heard of, and then also recently published works, because sometimes with recently published works where there's not a lot of information out about it, you might walk into the bookstore or go on to whatever website you like to buy books from, and there's the section recently published or what have you. You really don't have a lot to go off of versus books that have been out for 20, 30, 40, 50 plus years. There's usually some background where you can kind of decide if it's going to be a book for you, but it's not always easy with those recently published works. And if you follow people online and you're in that kind of bookish space, you'll see more of those books that have been recently published, and you'll know if they fit for you. What else? I also, in my experience, it's been a great way to engage with authors. It depends on the author, obviously. I don't think Stephen King is responding to a lot of people's DMs, but...
Well, I mean, if you say something politically divisive...
Yeah, you can certainly challenge him, but I'm going to assume he's not responding to every fan message.
Right.
Recently published work where, the author maybe doesn't have as much of a following, or, it's, again, not some megastar. It's a great way to talk to smaller independent authors and talk to them about their work, get their perspective, and just engage with them, which I think adds another layer to that discussion that social media helps foster. I'm sure I had others written down, but that's really all I can think of off the top of my head right now.
Yeah, I think that, like you, I've used Reddit pretty heavily, and I've picked up a lot of great book recommendations from Reddit. I can name some books. Between Two Fires, which I read this year, which was fantastic. I got as a Reddit recommendation. Last Boat Out of Shanghai, which I did a video essay on. That was a Reddit recommendation. I got Left Hand of Darkness and The Three Body Problem from Reddit, which I haven't read yet, but both of those books are very highly regarded for sci-fi. So Reddit can be great. I would say another pro is kind of like what you said with the community aspect, being able to connect with people who like the same stuff as you and then get recommendations from them, because they kind of do a lot. Some people will just do have already done the legwork for you. So
right.
you know that you like similar stuff. They read this book, they recommend it, you read it, you also like it. That's a win. It's very similar to the music industry, which I feel like I bring up every time we're on a podcast. So maybe I should start a music podcast, but where back in the day you had to have a record deal to get your music out there. Now you can deliver your writing to anybody pretty easily. That also oversaturates the market with a lot of junk, which we can talk about more in the cons section of this discussion. And I think that just the general accessibility.
Yeah.
Obviously, the internet has made downloading ebooks incredibly easy. You can have a book in front of you in a matter of seconds, or same thing with audiobooks. But I think that might be kind of where the pros are. They're a little bit limited. I'm struggling to think of anything outside of, we get more book recommendations.
Right. We get more book recommendations and we get to talk about books more.
Yeah, and I think the community aspect shouldn't be overlooked or underrated. I think that's a big part of it. We know somebody that runs a social media account that everyone who reads must.
Everyone who reads it must converse.
Yeah. Which is like so on the nose.
Yeah.
It's just like if you.
Well, it's a playoff of it's a Flannery O'Connor novel.
Oh, okay.
I
didn't know that was a reference to a book.
Yeah, for the life of me, I can't remember what the actual title is now, but it's like very similar.
But it's so true. Like if you were stranded on an island, and you had books, you would read them and they would entertain you. But I feel like you wouldn't enjoy them as much if you didn't have anyone to talk with them about.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's definitely something that needs to be discussed.
Right. I'm really struggling to think of any other obvious pros.
Well, what are some of your cons, some negatives that you came up with? I'm sure we'll figure out some more pros or benefits as we talk, but what were some downsides that stuck out to you?
Yeah, I think the ease of accessibility is also a con because, like we said, it oversaturates the market. And I think there's a little bit of validity to when you get published as an author and you have either a publishing company or an agent say, this is good, but not good enough. It pushes an author or an artist, really, in any medium, to refine and rework. And I think you just end up with overall better quality stuff. I would say, so the oversaturation is a big problem. I saw an Instagram post the other day that said, this is like the number one tip for anyone that wants to read more books. And it was like, start a Bookstagram. And I'm so conflicted about that because on the one hand, I do think it's cool to create stuff, to have a creative outlet, even if you don't think of yourself as a super creative person. Guest starring my dog today. It is a way for people to connect, but creating content is work.
Right.
Even if it's for fun, it's still, you're assigning work to something that for a lot of people is a pastime or leisurely. And so I'm like, is that really a good idea for everyone to have a Bookstagram account? I don't think so.
I think it's kind of a flip side because I am guilty. I obviously have a Bookstagram account, but
if you want to do it, do it.
Right.
But to like say that everyone should do it, I was like, I don't know about that.
I also saw one today where it was something like how to start your own Bookstagram and it was like a step-by-step guide. And it's like, it's not that serious. It doesn't have to be this like complicated process. Like if you like to read a lot and you want an outlet to talk about it, make an Instagram account.
Right.
Come up with a username. If you think of something clever that has books or reading or something in the title, great. If not, whatever. And just post about books. Like it doesn't have to be this super serious thing where saying like I'm guilty. I have a Bookstagram account, but I'm not out here really trying to make content. Like if I see a handful of people like posting off of a hashtag or something like that. I just did one this afternoon before we started recording. Then I'll fall off of that because that's fun. It adds to that community aspect we were talking about. But I'm not out here really planning my posts.
Right.
I don't really think things through ahead of time. If I finish a book and I think I have something worthwhile to say, I'll take a picture of it and write up a little caption and share that. If I finish a book and I don't think I really have anything interesting to say, but I liked it or disliked it, I'll share it to my story and say, hey, I just finished it and I liked it. And I think that's as simple as it needs to be if you want an online space where you want to talk about books.
Yeah, and I don't know if a lot of people know this. I mean, not that I have a huge following, but I created I created the On Life content with the intention of making it into a business, for lack of a better term. But the way that came about was, as you know, I sold my last business. I have a video production company, which I like to do, but it's not like I don't get out of bed in the morning and I'm like, ooh, yeah, I'm going to make content about a law office today. Like, I'm going to go shoot an ad for an attorney. I love my clients. It's fun work, but it's not like what my passion is. So I had a discussion with myself and I was like, if you could do anything you wanted with your time, money wasn't an issue, what would I do? And a lot of my time would probably be spent reading books. And so it made sense to me. I was like, okay, let's take this thing that you want to do with your free time and see if you can make that a way to earn some of your living. The caveat is I'm okay with it if that never happens.
Right.
Because in 2 years from now, if I've made $0, I will not have regretted reading a bunch of books.
Exactly.
So
I will not regret reading and talking about what I've read.
right. So I think some people maybe think that they can become an influencer, and I don't think that's necessarily wrong, but you need to be like realistic with yourself about it too. Like, are you doing this because it's what you want to do with your time? Or do you think like, oh yeah, I'm pretty into books and I think I could turn this into a money-making thing? So for me, it's like, yes, if I could make some money from it, fantastic. But if I never do, it is what it is.
If you're out to create a Bookstagram or YouTube account or whatever to talk about books with the intention of making money out of it, I think you're probably going to be in for a rude awakening. There are obviously people with social media accounts of wide varieties that focus on anything and everything. But to me, like, how profitable can talking about books on Instagram really be versus if you're just kind of creating general content and you are able to get sponsorships or paid promotions from
Right.
Multiple aspects versus.
But I think that's why you see so much derivative content. And so that's the thing is like people might hear me say like, yeah, I would love to monetize this. And they think, oh, he's like a sellout. Like this is all BS. But that's the thing is if you look at the content I put out, I don't niche down to just one genre or self-help or business or whatever it is.
Right.
Like a lot of people do. And a lot of people do niche down because it is easier to monetize if you are super hyper focused on one market segment.
Yeah.
And so that's my standard is, yeah, if I can turn this into a quasi business, I hate calling it a business because it's not, it's a passion, but if I can monetize it, I will, but not at the expense of reading books I don't want to read and talking about things I don't want to talk about. I recently did a Blinkist promotion, which was a tool I had never used before they asked me to do a promotion. And I told them, I was like, I'm going to try it.
Yeah.
And if I like it, I'll make a positive review. If I don't like it, it was a small promotion. So it wasn't worth a couple $100 to make a video about something that I thought was junk. So it's so weird because I think what happens is people see accounts that are businesses and then they run their personal for fun account like that. And I think that's a mistake.
Yeah.
But there is so much derivative content on Instagram. Without naming any names, you and I always have a chuckle at the people that
We've shared a few back and forth. Yeah.
hold the book so you can't see what it is, and they make you wait and wait and wait and wait, and then they flip it. Or they do like I don't know, just like the overall presentation is just the same.
There's
over and
a
over
lot
again.
of gushing about covers and
Right.
the aesthetic of the book and how cool the book looks and things like that. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I like a book that has a really cool cover.
Sure.
I think to some degree it's part of the art of the book itself, but there's more to talk about. There's that can't be your whole thing, is filming yourself going into a Barnes and Noble and freaking out about how all the pretty the books look.
Which is a lot of content is like that. And you and I saw this a lot in the fitness industry where it became a thing where, like, if you were a coach and you were trying to sell your services, it made sense to post your workouts and post content every day. But then people who are just going to the gym to get in shape are now filming their workouts. And it's like you're adding this extra layer of complexity to this activity.
Hate it so much.
Yeah, that is just completely unnecessary. And it's the precedent is set by someone who is doing this for a living or making money with online content. And then you as an individual, just for fun, are doing it. And it just slows everything down. It adds work to this thing that shouldn't be work.
Yeah.
So that's a huge con, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's something that I actually have been thinking about, kind of parallels to stuff I had seen when working in fitness. I think something that can be a con of the online book space is it's very easy to compare yourself to other readers.
Right.
And if you're working out, training for something, whether your goal is to a performance-based thing or you're trying to lose X amount of weight or whatever, and you're making progress towards that goal and you're making really good progress towards that goal, and then you see someone else that has made more progress or also a lot of very good progress, but it's more progress than you've made, it's very easy to get discouraged.
And we see that with total number of books read.
I was going to say, I think that carries over very quickly into books because people get very wrapped up in the quantity of books they're reading, which I've been guilty of. Say you've read 30 books by August and you're feeling great about that. And then you see someone that has read 50 and all of a sudden you feel really bad about
Right.
only reading 30, but that's still a lot of books. And that could end up affecting how you read, how you approach books, just trying to like speed read,
Yeah.
and just stack up a stack of books read and not really understand or have any sort of takeaway from them. So I think that's a big negative.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, Goodreads, which is a product of the internet, the pros, it's fun to track what you've read. I do think writing reviews helps you to process what you've read, Jesus. And also help you remember it better, which I
Yeah.
think is important. You can also get book recommendations from there. But then on the flip side, Goodreads really pushes you to have a book reading goal. And you do see what your friends' reading goals and how quickly or not quickly they might be going through books. And it can add this guilt like, oh, I'm not reading fast enough, or I'm not reading enough, or maybe I'm just not reading the cool books or whatever.
Right.
So definitely pros and cons to that as well. I would say another really big con of the internet when it comes to books is the trends where it does become kind of cool to read a specific book. And this probably existed prior to the internet with bestsellers lists and whatever. But there's some, I think it's just really not great work that people just rant and rave about. because again, they know that if I talk about this book, I'm going to get likes, I'm going to get clicks, I'm going to get comments. So that's, I think that's unfortunate.
I think that extends to kind of all ends of the literary spectrum. You have people who are going to rant and rave about, like a popular author, like a Colleen Hoover or something.
Koha, what up?
People like her for some reason. Her books are very popular.
I haven't read any.
I
so
don't know
can't-
why. I
can't
probably
say.
never. Yeah, I haven't either, and I doubt I ever will. But also, I think sometimes I've definitely been guilty of this in the more literature-based kind of spheres of people that I follow. It's very easy to get tricked into, so you see someone post a 1,000-page brick, or you see a book enough times, and you're like, oh, this is probably good.
Right.
And then it doesn't always live up to the hype. And
Yeah.
I think
That's even happened with some of the more avant-garde stuff you read.
that's happened to me this year. Like
Right.
I there was one book, Antagony it was Luis Scoitasolo. It's like 1,100 pages, and I saw enough people posting about it, and people whose opinions I trust.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is going to be great. It sounds really good. And it started off great, and then it just very quickly tumbled. And I remember telling you kind of as I was reading it, giving you live updates. It just was not doing it for me. And I foolishly kept pushing through. But it's funny. I actually, with that book, it was either shortly before I finished it or shortly after, I was watching a video on YouTube of someone talking about books and things like that, and believing the hype and things like that. And that was one of the books he referenced.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And how it's kind of a boring book.
Yeah.
And one of the things he said was that everybody that's buying into the hype for this book should actually check out books his brother has written instead.
Oh,
he's the better Coitus Solo.
Interesting.
I have since picked up one of his books. I haven't read it yet.
Yeah. Do you think that there's a pressure to say that you liked something when something is popular like that? People don't want to admit that they didn't like it.
I don't feel pressure. I'm sure that is different for other people.
I think what made me think of it is the Instagram account Bad Reads Official.
I love that page.
It is quite funny, and if for people listening and watching, if you're not familiar with it, it's a Instagram meme page, more or less, where they screenshot 1-star reviews of popular or classic or well-respected books on Goodreads, and kind of poke fun at the reviewer. And there's absolutely times where the review is just nonsense. The person's clearly a psychopath of some type. But I will say that it's okay to not like a classic or a well-known and well-respected book. And some of the reviews, while I don't know if 1 star is really fair, I can appreciate that someone didn't like it. Like, I don't care for Dostoevsky. I've tried to read 3 of that guy's books, and every time I'm like, I'm just not liking this. I just don't like his writing.
I think there's a difference, because with some of those 1-star reviews on that page in particular, I don't think it's ever clearly articulated why they don't like the book.
It's rare.
Yeah, I think it's perfectly okay to not like a popular or well-respected book, but I think sometimes books are just challenging.
Yeah.
And sometimes that turns into dislike, or maybe they just don't. They just dislike it, which is totally fine too. And I think sometimes people just run to their keyboard, and it's a lot of just and hoping something coherent comes out.
We talked about this with Dan Lawton, the difference between I didn't like it because it wasn't good and I didn't like it because it wasn't for me.
Right.
Which is how I feel about Dostoevsky. I'm not out here saying he's not a great writer, because clearly he's had a massive impact on literature, on the people who have read his work, but it's just not for me.
Right.
I don't care about the themes. I have encountered the themes in other works, so I guess I just don't need to get it from him, and I just don't really care for his writing style for whatever reason. And it's a translated work, so the translation is going to play a role in this, but I just cannot find a flow when I'm reading how he writes.
Yeah. I like, going back to your question, I definitely have felt pressured to buy books or buy them and then read them because of their popularity online. But I don't think I've ever felt pressured to like a book. I'm sure the hype has influenced my reading to some degree, but in some instances, it's probably like if there's a book that I am reading and don't like, but I'm not enjoying, but it's been pretty popular online, I might stick it out a little bit longer to see if, it picks up and if the hype is substantial, if there's a reason why it's popular. But I don't think if I don't like a book, I don't.
Yeah.
And from what I've experienced, I don't think personally, I think there's only one time where I've made a post about a book I had stopped reading and because I was not enjoying it. But I've seen a few posts, particularly about this book Solenoid by Mirsha Carter-Rescue.
I see a lot of people,
which has been very popular online, and I would very much like to read it, hopefully this year. But I've seen a handful of people post not negative reviews, but more critical than others. And from what I can tell, those posts are usually received with open arms.
Cool.
People are like, this is nice to have someone being critical, something other than, unabashed hype.
Right.
People aren't just like, bowing down, we're not worthy to this book. They're talking about their experience reading it and things they didn't like and clearly articulating their issues with it. And it's usually well received.
Yeah. I want to go back quickly to what you said about, I'm not sure why people like Colleen Hoover. I don't know specifically about her because I've never read anything by her, but I stumbled upon a very interesting video essay on YouTube about film and Top Gun Maverick, which, if people don't know, was a sequel, I guess, to the classic 80s movie Top Gun. And I guess a lot of the discussion around that movie online was the sentiment, they don't make movies like that anymore. Like the good old days.
Yeah.
The guy that made the video essay brought up a great point, which is that the film has no surprises. It follows a completely troped to death story structure.
I have not seen Maverick, but correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't it like to some degree almost like shot for shot Top Gun?
It's very close.
Very similar.
They literally just rehashed all the classic scenes in a newer way.
Yeah. Not to cut you off, but it's claiming online that they don't make movies like they used to anymore when almost every other movie is a sequel or a remake or something is a very interesting statement to make.
Well, but the author of the video essay said, he's like, Tom Cruise doesn't turn out to be the bad guy in the end. There's no plot twist. There's no it's just A to B, like a lot of movies are.
Right.
And so he talks about how a lot of movies from the studio A24, I think they did Everything Everywhere All at Once and a lot of other kind of bizarre off the beaten path type films. Nope was like that. I don't know if you saw Nope.
No, I haven't seen any of his movies.
Highly rated movie that was just very strange.
I'm pretty sure A24 also did Under the Silver Lake. Which
I think so
is
as well.
Definitely a movie that more people should watch if they have not.
Yeah.
Especially if you enjoy some of the books that we've talked about so far. I think you'll get a lot out of the movie.
Yeah, you said it's very Pynchon-esque, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to land this plane, pun intended, that I'm talking about Top Gun Maverick, I think there's a certain feeling that people get when they read or watch or listen to a particular piece of artwork. And even if they know what's coming, because it's giving them that same feeling over and over again. And I think, like we talked about with Dan Lawton, with the suspense genre, it's very formulaic.
Right.
But people almost don't care, right? As long as they can get that same feeling every time, I think that's why an author like Colleen Hoover is probably popular, is because she's very good at whatever that itch she's scratching. I don't know what it is because I haven't read any of her books, but I think that's probably the case where it just scratches that itch. And I think that's why you see so much derivative content on things like Instagram Reels and TikToks, where someone on Facebook made a post about this, someone I know. They said, imagine your friend gets on stage and tells this banger joke, and it's like the funniest joke you've ever heard. And then for the next 2 hours, everyone else in the crowd gets on stage and tells the same joke. And I was like, yeah, that's TikTok in a nutshell. Yeah. But people, whatever that trend is at that time, it's like particular music with a particular visual paired together. It just like hits that funny bone just the right way, or hits you right in the feels in a certain way. And people are just addicted to experiencing that over and over and over again. And then they get sick of it. That's why the trends on these platforms come and go so quickly. 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, it was you sure about that?
Right.
You sure about that? Now, if you put that, you'd be like, dude, this is
right.
done. We're gone.
It's played out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that is why an author like Colleen Hoover is probably so popular. James Patterson, who is trash. We established in the last podcast episode.
Heard Dan Lawton.
Yeah. But I think that's cool that people seemed open to criticism of a book that's kind of like, because I, even for people that are reading more serious literature, for lack of a better term, it can be a little trendy and clicky, which not in a bad way. Just it's like we talked about. Someone knows that someone else has a similar appetite for whatever, and they recommend it, and then someone else sees it and they go out and get that work. So it's good that people are receptive to the criticism, because I mean, sometimes you just read something that everyone else loves and you're like, I think this kind of sucks.
Yes. The one book that I was alluding to that I'd posted about that, like, this is just not for me. It was Ducks Newburyport by Lucy Ellman.
Yeah, I remember you quitting on that one.
Yeah, like, I know a lot of people that have really loved it. People that, people that I talk to, engage with. There we go. People that I engage with on a semi-regular basis, really got a lot out of it and really enjoyed it. At the time, I was just like, this is just not doing it for me. This isn't for me. Sometimes I think about it, I'm like, that book was really stupid. I respect a lot of the things that Ellman was trying to do. I think in a lot of ways, like, I still think the concept behind it was brilliant and could be really interesting. I just don't think the execution was great.
So for those that don't know, Ducks Newburyport was written as more or less one sentence.
Yeah.
It's 1,000-ish pages.
Yeah. There's some breaks where there's like, it's like this, the breaks are this narrative about like a female mountain lion that recently gave birth.
Okay.
It gets, I'm pretty sure it gets explained or is tied into the main chunk of it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't get far enough to find out.
But it's mostly stream of consciousness, correct?
Yes. And it's
internal monologue.
It's the internal monologue of a stay-at-home mom in Ohio, just kind of going about her life and ruminating on the anxieties of everyday American life.
I mean, it is the most difficult job on the planet.
But the phrase, the fact that is used, I think I remember, I've seen a couple reviews talking about it, negative reviews. I think they said it was somewhere between 15 and 20,000 times in this 1,000-page book.
That's too many times.
And almost every single clause starts with the fact that, the fact that, the fact that, the fact that. And my issue with the book, like I said, the premise of it, I thought was great. And I really wanted to like it. I really did.
Yeah.
But to me, it just didn't read like something that, like, the way a normal person thinks, or the way someone, we all have those days where we're just scatterbrained.
Sure.
And one thought leads to a tangent, which leads to another tangent, which and we have very digressive thought patterns. But I don't know about you, my internal monologue doesn't repeat the same phrasing and quote or over and over and over and over and over. I just kind of bounce from one thought to the next.
It's so weird because to me that's like a speech crutch, which we all have. I draw out my and. I always go and. A lot of people say or but it's strange that you would publish that when you can just edit it out. That can't serve as any type of tool to deliver the story in a particular way, right?
I didn't think it did. I mean, it
Maybe
was
I'm not smart enough to understand.
Yeah, it was almost like the single biggest detractor for me.
Yeah.
I just got so sick of the phrase.
Yeah.
To the point
which is understandable.
To the point, and it's not like it's a bizarre phrasing or terminology. Like it, to some extent, it is part of like your everyday vernacular.
Yeah.
But to the point now where like I will say that in conversation and like almost shudder a little bit.
There was a book I read last year that was highly, highly recommended, a personal development book called The Courage to Be Disliked. Everyone was ranting and raving about how good it was. I read it. It was like baby's first philosopher type stuff. And they did a similar thing where every single chapter, it had the same exact structure. It was like the message that's delivered via a conversation between a mentor and a student. And basically, the mentor challenges the student with an idea. The student pushes back. Then the mentor explains why the student is an idiot. It doesn't get it. And every time the mentor would say something, the next sentence would be the student repeating it back as a question. Every single time. Every single time. It was so annoying. I was like, this book sucks. I'm sorry. But yeah, it's just odd to me that like Duck's Newburyport, that came from a publishing company. Like somebody read that and said, yep, we're putting this out there. No one said, hey, you use this phrase 15,000 times. Maybe like, let's cut some of those out. With that book, and this is very tangential, but do you think that they set out to write something in that very confined structure, or do you think that they had an idea for a story and the structure helped tell that story? And I'm talking about the stream of consciousness, not the repetitiveness of the fact that.
I'm trying to think because I feel like I vaguely remember reading up on it a little bit before starting.
Yeah.
I want to say it was probably a little column A, little column B.
Yeah.
I feel like, if you set out to write a book about this housewife, stay-at-home mother, whatever term you want to use, just kind of overthinking and being anxious and frantic about just everyday life, which is a common phenomena that we all deal with. I think the stream of consciousness kind of aspect blends itself to that really nicely because, like I said, we all have kind of days where just one thought turns into another and you can't really stay focused. And I think they kind of a good way, they bounce off of each other pretty well. The stream of consciousness kind of ties into that anxious mentality. And then if you're doing it well, the stream of conscious kind of adds to that anxiety and they just kind of feed off of each other. So I would assume kind of somewhere in the middle, but I don't know.
There's a book that I read many, many years ago called The Mezzanine. Are you familiar with it?
It's by Nicholson Baker. Like that. I think I just bought a copy of that recently.
And basically,
it's about two people like going up, passing each other, going up on an escalator, right?
Yeah, more or less. It's like same thing, like stream of consciousness. Basically, this guy's thoughts the distance from when he walks into a building to the mezzanine.
Yeah,
and to me, that read as like a book where someone was like, "I'm going to start with the concept, the confinement of this structure, and then see if I can make it interesting." And I remember thinking it was like cool. There's a movie that's kind of like that.
Should be noted that the mezzanine is like 1/10 of the length of Duck's Newburyport.
Yes, it's a very short book. I think it's less than 200 pages.
It's barely over 100.
Yeah.
My like I said, I just got a copy. I think it might be like 120, 130 pages. You could read it in one sitting.
Yeah. There's a movie very similar to this, or kind of conceptually similar, which is Locke with Tom Hardy. And the concept is he's driving somewhere, and I think his wife is pregnant. It's been a while since I've seen it, but he's basically just taking phone calls, and you're only hearing like his side of the conversation.
Interesting.
Is it a good movie? Like, I wouldn't say you have to see this. It's amazing. But it's one of those things where they clearly started with, can we make a movie of one character in a car interesting? And I think I appreciate it for its ambition. I think it'd be very difficult for something in that confined way of storytelling to really rock your socks, which is kind of like how I feel about something like Duck's Newburyport, where it's like, that might have been cool at 500 pages or 300 pages, but 1,000 pages, I think it's maybe just a little like you know what I'm saying?
Yes. I had a couple people that
there's an M word I'm thinking of.
There were a couple people I had been reading it with, and one of them was like, you have to stick it out. Like the last 100 pages, it really all comes together and makes it so worth it. Just like there's three. I stopped around the 500 mark. I'm like, that's 400 pages,
right?
Of the fact that, and it's just there's so many other things that I would rather read.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. Like, that's a lot of work to do just to get 100-page payoff at the end.
Right.
There's easier ways to get there with other works.
I will find a 500-page book that I enjoy reading, and we'll read that instead.
Yeah. Okay, so any more pros or cons of the internet's influence on reading and writing?
The as seen on Book Talk table at Barnes and Noble.
The fact that that's a thing is interesting.
I was thinking about that this afternoon because it, makes me sound like a bit of a Luddite and just ragging on this, like, form of advertisement or things that, the way things are displayed. But I was kind of thinking about it like, do they still have, like, as seen on TV aisles? It's still there. But that felt different to me because, like, those were things that were, shown during commercial breaks or infomercials or maybe, but that was from one medium.
Right.
It was stuff that you saw on TV that you could have seen watching between a commercial break of a football game or a soap opera or the news or whatever, versus Book Talk, which is I think even if the sign said as seen on TikTok, I would hate it less because it's like, it was something you saw on this social media platform and was popular on this social media platform.
Yeah.
Not something that was popular in a very small section of a social media platform.
I think the reason why it seems odd to people is because we've all grown up with social media as a very low barrier to entry format, I guess. Anyone can create an account in minutes and make a post in minutes, and theoretically that post could be seen by millions of people.
Right.
Technically anyone can pay to have a commercial run on network television. It just takes a lot more work.
Right.
It's a very expensive thing to do to run an ad on TV. So, but I think it really speaks to that these companies are realizing the power of social media. It's funny because fundamentally you would think booktube, bookstagram, and book talk would all be the same, but they're not.
They're not.
Booktube, I would say, is all but dead, honestly. There's a few people who still get lots and lots of views on book related content, but it's really bad. It's, I would say, maybe the worst of it, because it's literally just, let me talk about these books that I haven't read that I just bought brand new at Barnes and Noble for 20 minutes.
Right. I think the people that are still really sticking with it with booktube are people that are doing it for the love of the game. Like,
Yeah.
because I think if you're, and this doesn't really
If
count,
you're reviewing,
if you're reviewing a book, it
real
obviously-
literature, yeah.
yeah. If you're, or even, say fake literature, but
TV on paper.
stuff that's, more just for like entertainment purposes. It's a little different with, doing a 20-minute video talking about a stack of books you just bought, because unless it's an author that you really like or something like that, chances are you're not going to have a lot to say about that book. It's just going to be a lot of filler.
Right.
But, if you're reviewing a book, no matter what the book is, no matter the degree of difficulty or substance of it, if you want a long form or medium form platform to discuss that book, whether it's a 5-minute video or 10, 20 minutes or 2 hours or 6 hours, whatever, that's really the only platform where you have that ability to do so.
Right.
But
You can actually upload 60-minute videos to Instagram now.
really,
Yeah.
but
No one's watching them, though, just an FYI.
I don't think that many people are uploading those videos to Instagram, or excuse me, YouTube, with the intention of going viral or being an influencer or what have you.
Yeah.
They just want to talk about their book at a long and have a longer discussion
Yeah.
about what they just read and share what they took away from it, what they learned reading it, things like that.
Yeah. I, as you know, started with video essays on books, and I occasionally was tying them into other things like psychological or social concepts. And I would spend 15 hours on a video, get 150 views.
Yeah.
And you're just like, what am I doing this for?
Right.
And I hate to say it, but that's why I've switched more to shorter form content. It's tough because you can't really fully dive into something as deep as you want to go, but it is good because it's like a self-editing process where you go, okay, you have 90 seconds to get this message across. So what is the most important thing? You can't dilly-dally. You have to build interest, communicate something of value to the viewer, give them an honest review, an honest opinion. It's hard to do. I think maybe interestingly, that's why podcasting for books has been, we've only done 2 episodes, but it's been popular because people who are into that can really dive into it on a deeper, longer format.
Yeah. I think, going to what you were just saying about the shorter form content, I think it varies a lot. Like, cause you can, you've posted a lot of those like 60-second book reviews, and those are for the most part pretty good.
Nice.
There are some where I'm just like, whatever. I keep scrolling. But the ones I've watched, like, you have good things to say about the book, or you, articulate well what you're saying about the book.
Right.
It's something of substance, but it's also quick and to the point.
Yeah.
And at the end of 60 seconds, I can take away like, okay, here's sort of what this book is about. Here's, is it a good book? Is it worth my time? What have you?
Right.
But you're not like, it's not, you have a lot of like those personal development accounts where it's like, here's 3 books to grow your income by $12K in the
so
next
bad.
6 weeks, things like that. Or I think kind of going back to what we were just talking about the book talk table, I think that's kind of what my biggest gripe with it is a lot of the content that features those books. It's not someone doing a 60-second to 6-hour book review. It's, oh my God, look at how pretty this book is.
Right.
The spicy level is,
Yeah.
and I don't want to hate on people that, like romance books or like thrillers or whatever, but this goes back to the discussion we had on our first episode about talking about difficult books, that those book talk tables are a very narrow, I wouldn't call it a genre, but type of book.
Yeah. It's a lot of it's TV on paper.
I was going to say, it's what you said earlier. It's TV on paper.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Going back to your comment about the personal development accounts, those are wildly popular. That might be the most popular type of book related content on the internet. And I think the reason for that is because we live in a culture that emphasizes money so much, leveling up so much. And you watch those videos and you know they're not reading all of those books.
Right.
You want to tell me you read 10 books about one freaking topic about personal. Oh, here's the 10 best ways to invest in real estate. It's like, yeah, you read all of those in a month. Okay.
Right.
You skimmed them. You used Spark Notes.
Right.
Or you just literally know that people like those books. And so you're just putting them on camera because people are going to go, I read that book. Click. That is the frustrating thing is I know when I make a piece of content, if it's a book a lot of people have read, it will do a lot better. And that seems very obvious to say.
Yeah.
But you would think people are out here like, oh, I'm following this account to maybe find new books to read. People would much rather just be like, oh yeah, I read that one.
Right.
And I get it. Again, it goes back to like, we're talking about a book, we're discussing it, it's building community and all that's cool. But the personal development book space is just it's so bad. There's a couple of people that I think do an okay job of it. But for the most part, I think it's just like, it's a little bit of a sellout.
Well, I think, we had touched briefly on this in our first episode where those personal development self-help books in general are a very popular type of book.
Right.
It's where a lot of people start with reading when they're like, oh, I should start reading more, and they don't know where to look.
Smart people read books. So let me read a book and I'll get smarter.
Right.
Right. It's very transactional. It's very A to B.
Right. And I know I fell down that wormhole, especially when I was in the fitness space, because those types of books are crazy popular with fitness coaches, even not directly fitness related ones, just any sort of, personal development book. I saw coaches ranting and raving about that book, Sapiens.
Right.
Which I read and I really liked. You have since told me that there are some issues with it.
Yeah, there's some pretty serious critiques of it from some very well educated and professional people.
So, we don't really have to get into it, but whether it's, correct or there's problems with it or whatever, I liked the book. I enjoyed reading it, but there wasn't stuff there that really I could take away and be like, oh, I'm a smarter, better It's just, I've ragged on Malcolm Gladwell in the past.
Yeah.
Like he says, some, and I think there are people that have pointed out the issues in his research process and things like that, which I'm not familiar with any of those issues. So I'm not going to praise or critique. Well, I'm going to critique him, but
Fuck that guy.
You read some of the stuff and it reads interesting and it's more or less well written. It's engaging.
Right.
But like, what do you take away from that? There's, everybody talks about how you've got to read Outliers if you want to be successful. I read Outliers. There's interesting things within Outliers, but there was nothing where I was like, oh, okay, here's two actionable steps I can take that I can start doing in my everyday life that, if anything, there were parts of it where I was like, man, it sucks that I didn't have Jewish ancestors that worked in the garment industry. And then I didn't get a certain job at the right time because everybody hiring was anti-Semitic. Right. And it allowed me to practice this other type of thing that I got really good at because I wasn't originally hired because of my religion.
Right.
Interesting story, but how does that
What do you do
help?
with it?
How does that help anyone be successful?
I think another big problem with the personal development genre is that a lot of, in my opinion, as someone that's run a business, a lot of success is about systems. And if you read 3 books all on the same, roughly on the same topic, you can't take a little bit from this guy's system and this woman's system and mix them together and get something that's going to work most of the time. So it's like, what is the point of reading 5 different business books? And I've known other business owners that have done this, where it's like whatever book they're reading, that's the only way to do it. And then they do it for 4 to 6 weeks. It doesn't really work because they haven't given it enough time. And then they're reading another book and they're on to a different method, and it's just a mess.
I don't know, man. Everyone should read the Checklist Manifesto. Well, we talked about this on our our first episode, where, I think I took more out of and grew more as a person once I kind of transitioned from those personal development books to more like fiction.
Yeah.
I just think it was engaging my brain in a different way. And
Yeah.
it feels a little arrogant-y to say that I, got smarter once I started reading fiction, but like, I do think it kind of made me more well-rounded and,
Yeah.
like I said, changed the way I think, and
Yeah.
just kind of gave me different perspectives on stuff. Whereas when I was reading a lot of the personal development stuff, I think I was just kind of reading through it and engaging with it the same way I did a lot of stuff at work.
Yeah.
So
we need to come to some hard opinions here. The internet, net positive or net negative for books and reading?
You want to go first? You want me to go first?
No, you go first.
Okay. I think it's a net positive. I was thinking about this, the last few days since we decided on what we're going to talk about. And I know it's probably, listening back, it's going to sound like we spent a lot of the last hour poo-pooing social media, which we definitely have. But I think even though quantitatively the cons might outweigh the pros, I think from a qualitative standpoint, the pros carry a lot more weight, in my opinion.
I would agree with that completely.
Because, we only had like 3 pros, but you have a much bigger community, a much wider space to talk about and discuss books on any level, surface level or, studious, get really deep into it. You're able to engage with other readers, with authors, and just learn about more books and get better recommendations. We all love, if you're listening to this podcast, presumably love stumbling into a bookstore and just kind of, mining the shelves and seeing if something sticks out to you, and maybe you'll discover your new favorite book or whatever. But also it helps knowing going into a bookstore, like I'm going to have 2 or 3 books that I'm going to keep my eye out for, and having a social media space where you get those recommendations from. It's led me to so many great books. So I can't really ultimately end with calling it a net negative.
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly that quantitatively the list for the cons is longer, but the positive qualities of the pros outweigh that. Certainly, the community aspect is probably the best because, as we already talked about, books are just so much more enjoyable if you have people to chat with them about. And previously, before the internet, it was more or less like who is in your local immediate area.
Right. You had your local book club, or if you were tech savvy enough in the 80s and 90s, you had the email listserv.
Right.
And that was it.
Yeah.
But
so there's definitely obviously a lot more books now. So it's probably even harder to locally find people who have read what you've read.
Right.
just by the sheer volume of books ever written. So, all right, I think that's probably it. The internet's a net positive
For books.
for books. Can't say that about Twitter comments. So, anything else you want to add before we wrap it up?
No, I don't think so. I talked about everything I had in my brain.
Fantastic. Well, I can't promise when the next episode will be out or who will be on it. We are planning to have a guest, Krista Zobel, who is a college professor and currently chasing her PhD in theology. And she's actually the person who gave me the phrase TV on paper. So it'll
be nice to have someone actually qualified to be here.
Yes, she's quite smart, well-read, and I think it'll be a fantastic interview. So make sure that you follow along on your favorite podcast platforms, except Apple. We're not on there yet. Long story about that, but we're working on it. But follow us on YouTube, subscribe, all that good stuff, and we will see you next time.